The uncommon stories then lead to uncommon issues. It will test you on every front. Every part of you will be put into the fire and then molded. And in those uncommon issues, you're gonna have to figure it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. What do we need to bring up?
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine that, we used to play football together. He was tough on the field. I was tough on the field. We had a certain mentality. And I was describing a challenging situation mentally for me with real estate development. And the reason why it was challenging was it wasn't more that it's just this crazy, unnatural process. It was more the mentality that I was approaching it. And the reason why was because it was a lot more money attached to it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and I'm just telling them the story about how, I'm not used to analyzing deals this big. We're talking multi-million dollars for this rehab. It's a little different. And, to his credit, he gave me room to kind of clarify my thoughts, which, as a friend, you need to do sometimes for your friends. And at the end of me telling him all these reasons why this was so uncomfortable, so different, end of the day, I was like, I'm not used to doing this. It's like, hey, well, get used to it. Get used to it then. And for me, I test the guys. I'm like, you know what? It was a very simple statement, but it was profound because after we hung up the phone, I kept thinking about that. I'm like, well, get used to it. Get used to it. And then after I made my peace with it mentally, I got to work. I just started running the numbers, doing the same process I've done a million times. Mm-hmm. But I needed somebody to step in and kind of, hey, don't worry about that. Don't make this bigger than what it has to be. Yeah. And so that's what brought up the title for me when I was texting you guys and just saying, hey, this might be something that we need to talk about.
When we say get used to it, there's people out there say, oh, I can do that. I can get used to just doing nothing. Mm-hmm. I can get used to just, borrowing money from people. And some people feel like they're really used to that. But anyway, the point though is that we want to make sure that what we're talking about is those things that's gonna take you to that next level. Yeah, that's gonna take you to it. So I just wanted to throw that out there, the disclaimer, because someone's like, oh, well, man, they saying what I want to hear.
Yeah, no, that's important because we're not talking about getting used to mediocrity.
No.
If you thought that, you on the wrong podcast. I don't know how you got here.
We're talking about getting used to stretching yourself and being comfortable with what that feels like. Essentially, you have to get used to being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Entrepreneurship, I think, that reveals a lot about who you are, like who you really are. Yeah. And I think like it will test you on every front. Every part of you will be put into the fire and then molded. And so this whole get used to it thing is like you in this lane, you always run into all kinds of different issues that you otherwise wouldn't. Like if you just took the normal route, if I went to high school, graduated from high school, went to college, got me a degree, then I got a degree. Then with my degree, I got a job related to that degree. I worked that for 30 years. I retired. And then after that, I was, moved to Florida, stayed in Florida, died. And then that was the story. If you decide to do anything else, just know that the uncommon stories then lead to uncommon issues. And in those uncommon issues, you're gonna have to figure it out. Yeah. And so just get used to it. I know for me, there is a consistent process of learning new things. Like when new things when I come up with a new issue or I'm trying to do something new or I'm trying to achieve something a little bit different, it always requires a different process. Mm-hmm. So it's like, of course, you guys have heard the saying before. It's like, it'd be insane for me to think I could do the same thing and get a different result. Yeah. I've got to do something different. Yeah. And so in that doing something different, there's a big space of unfamiliarity. And in that unfamiliarity, I need to now adapt myself to it, overcome the issues in it so that I can actually move forward. What I feel like a lot of people do is when they get to that friction point, when they get to that little area of like, I don't know exactly what to do, I think it's easy to stop. But as an entrepreneur, just deal with it. You have to.
So another thing I think is important for us to understand, going back to the spiritual element of this whole thing, God, I truly believe like God would never give you a vision in your heart that you can't stop thinking about if it was just for no reason.
Totally agree.
You know what I'm saying? So, but in the same token, he'll never fully outline what it's going to take to achieve that vision. So for myself, for example, I can honestly say when I was very, very young, probably like maybe 7 or 8, like I had a vision of who I was going to be later. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say that. And I didn't know what that meant. You know, I didn't know what it meant. And it was uncomfortable because I started realizing that I was kind of unique based on the people that were in my circle. Because I would like ask them questions like, hey, did you see what? And they'll come like, oh yeah, I saw cartoons today. And I'm like, man, you know, I'm thinking about this like when I was a man at 8, and it was just a very strange thing. But now looking back on my life, I can see how certain things that happened that may have been uncomfortable in the moment, but I can see how it helped prepare me for what I'm doing now. And so this is important where true faith has to really kick in these moments where we approach these challenging times and we're like, man, we're not used to this, especially in our community. Yeah. If you're talking about being an entrepreneur, a lot of us, we're not surrounded by generations of highly successful entrepreneurs. Now, we may have grown up around some hustlers that, you know, they figured out how to make ends meet, but we're talking about generational entrepreneurship where we're the ones that's trying to get used to it. Mm-hmm. So we have to be able to, you know, go down those roads that aren't paved, and we got to figure out how to navigate, you know, and just figure out new things.
Going back to childhood, it's a good example because I just remember, you know, having to give a speech, you know, as a kid. Yeah. And it was like, you know, just overcome with fear, right? And in my head, it was like, okay, just go out there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you have to make that, you have to make your mind up, for one. 2, when you talk about faith, I was thinking about, man, you know, faith without works, James tells us, is dead. So if you got faith, then that's going to manifest itself in works. That's going to manifest itself in like, hey, okay, this is going to get done. And as you guys start, I've seen you guys do it. I mean, we all done it where it's like, okay, we got this out here to get. We got faith that we can get it. We don't have all the answers right now, but we know God gonna give us the breadcrumbs and the pieces. You know, I just need to keep figuring it out.
I remember a real get used to it moment for me. By the time I graduated from college, I was going to like 13 different schools. So like during that whole road, like as a kid, you know, it's typically a lot of kids, well, one thing that you hear about a lot of kids is that, you know, it's hard to find new friends when you get into a new space. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I'm like, I'm in a new space every other year. So I better figure this out. And so me, like we moved from one city to the next city. Okay, I'm the new kid again. Cool. So I figure out, I do my thing in that space. Then we moved to another area. Okay, so now everything that was built up over there, like the reputation that was built up, the friend group that was built up, you know, as a kid, you ain't got no phone there. And social media wasn't that big back then. And so, spoiler alert for those who think I'm younger than that, there was no social media at that point in time. And so moved to another spot. So as a kid, I'm not connected to nobody who I just spent, you know, a year getting to know. Mm-hmm. And so I'm reestablishing myself in a completely new place. There was the point of like, so me and my sister, she had a big issue with that. Like she was like, man, no, we moving too much. Mm-hmm. I ain't got, like my friends are over there. How am I supposed to meet these new people? For me, I kind of, only the Holy Spirit, it was more of a, well, get used to it kind of mentality. Mm-hmm. Figure yourself out in this new space because it just is what it is. Like you crying about it ain't gonna change the circumstance. You ain't gonna cry enough about it for you to be at the other school. Ain't nothing that is not gonna reverse the situation. So just deal with it.
What happens when people don't get used to it? What are some of the traits? Because I mean, just so people can identify it themselves, or even some things they're going through. So what happens when
you don't deal with it?
Yeah,
I think when you decide that you're not gonna deal with it. First off, I think you're gonna definitely get sad because you're limiting yourself on options. Because I mean, if you're not gonna deal with it, then you know that there's only the work to do. So it just needs doing. So if you're gonna avoid it, then this is gonna create a habit. One thing about it, like when, people, we are creatures of habit. We do things over and over again. So if I decide that, this thing right here, for whatever reason, I'm just not going to move forward. I'm just not gonna just deal with it and I'm gonna go do something else. That turns into a pattern. We were talking about entrepreneurship. You see a lot of people who will see an ad or see a post from some influencer like Forex trading. This is the new thing. This is gonna make you a millionaire in a month. All you gotta do is take my course, take my program, and then you're gonna be a millionaire. 30 days. They take the program. They're telling all their friends. They're like, yo, I know the new thing, bro. I'm gonna go do this trading thing and I'm about to kill it, bro. I'm a trader now, okay? And so they get into it, 30 days, they've been rolling, they are excited about it. And so they start going through the course, they start watching all the videos, they start reading the books, and they are all about this thing. And they're like, and then they get to a point where it's like, shoot, this might get a little bit difficult. They see something else. Real estate investing. This is the new thing. Generational wealth. You're gonna be rich. And then we got the guru over here.
They're pretty good, though.
Telling, in 100 days, I'm gonna show you how to flip properties like nobody else. And so they jump over there. Now we in another ship, another boat, trying to build this thing up. But the thing is, I didn't stay in any of it long enough to actually be successful in anything, because when the problem came, I didn't deal with it. I just jumped ship and moved to something else. Yeah. Take that and put it into a relationship scenario, put it in business, put it in career. You ain't never getting nowhere far because you won't stay long enough on the road to get anywhere.
What happens when people don't get used to it? Mm-hmm. The first thing that came to my mind is just like anxiety happens. Mm-hmm. that's number one. Anxiety happens, because you're like, oh man, I don't want to get used. That can be a very challenging situation. We were talking about going into a new environment as a kid. Because you see it with a lot of adults. I see it all the time when I go to business meetings or network. You can tell who's comfortable and who's not. Mm-hmm. Before you say a word, your energy always speaks. And the funny thing, because I think about this a lot. With our kids, we parent a lot based on our experience, right? Mm-hmm. Because I did move around a lot, and I don't have that one home where it's like, all right, well, I grew up here just all of my life. And because I was able to see a lot of different places, but for me, it was very important for my kids to have that stability and say, you know what, this is gonna be the house. Like, that was extremely important. But on the flip side, I can see, and it frustrates me that they don't have some of the skills that I had at that age, especially with my oldest, because I'm like, man, when I was 8, I was doing this, I was doing this, I was doing this. And I have to catch myself like, you know what, he's not you though. Yeah. He's not me. I gotta let him go through his process and learn through these lessons. That's another thing I want to say on to the parents is allow your kids to go through defeats. Allow them to go through early adversity. Don't try to sugarcoat. Oh, well, he deserves a medal because he was here. Listen, man, that is not, in my opinion, like everybody chooses to do their thing in a different way, but I don't believe in that because early adversity is good for all of us.
Yeah, I remember going to practice, going through it that first week. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, this is like,
What in the world?
What they
trying to kill me.
They trying to kill us. And how is this going to help me be a better wrestler? You know, me crawling around, you know, all this running. I'm like, you know, you sitting there, you like, and you see some guys drop off, you know, but then what do? You get used to it.
Yep.
And you know what? It's not like you get to the point where you don't feel the pain, because the coaches always take you to another level. They always got something they want to do. We're gonna do this today. We hit the hill today. Are we doing burpees? We doing whatever. And it's like, you're like, oh man. But you know, you got used to it. And you know what? You got stronger from it.
The whole thing is it's never too late to change the narrative on your life. It's a mentality where one can be a victim mentality and one can be a attack mentality. Like, you know what? I have an issue. I'm gonna attack my daily regimen and I'm gonna just get through it.
Yeah.
And whatever results happen, I'm gonna be okay with that because I know that I've given my all.
Think about, you know, some of the challenges the kids got today, and just people in general. I mean, they're in situations where, you know, nobody taught them how to do certain things.
Yeah.
So, you know, they didn't have an opportunity to get education because, you know what, the youngest brother's taking care of the kids. You know, it could be any number of different things. And those circumstances are challenging. But to your point, it's like, if you figure out, just kind of keep doing the best you can, trusting God for sure, there's gonna be a way. Okay, there's gonna be a way. It might not look like the guy down the street or the girl down the street, but it's gonna be a way for you to make it better.
If you are going after anything that is of any significance in your life or anybody else's life, you have to, because you're not gonna know all the answers. You're not gonna know every answer to every problem. You're not gonna know every solution. You're not gonna know every person you need to talk to. They're gonna be unknown unknowns. Yes. But the thing is, if you are willing to go through it, if you are willing to just deal with it, then the thing is, I believe with my faith that all things are going to work together for my good. So I don't care if this obstacle comes up. I don't care if this person says, I don't care what the government, I don't care who's the president. I know that whatever it is, I'm going to check in with God. I'm going to go ahead and do what the word says to do. And I'm going to keep moving forward, because regardless of what the outside circumstances look like, it's going to work for me in the end, period.
Right.
All this stuff is going on at all times, okay? And because we have these phones, it's getting kind of shoveled down our throats too. Definitely. People ask me, what do you think about this? What do you think about? I'm like, listen, I don't know. My go-to answer is, I don't know enough about that to speak on it. I got to do a little more research. Now, whether I'm going to research it or not is besides the point. The fact is, you got to control, I call it like mental judo. And you got to like control because people will try to shovel what they're passionate about on you. And they'll try to, and they'll get frustrated when they're not getting through, you know, because you're doing mental judo. You're like, oh yeah, I hear you. Okay, cool. You know, because it's like, I choose what I receive. Just because something's said or done, it doesn't mean I have to allow it to enter my spirit, my spiritual realm. And I think that's an important point where it's a lot going on in the world. And if you're the type of person, you get caught up on all the breaking news and everything that goes on.
All the latest.
That's stressful, man. It's stressful because it's never not going to be stuff going on. But all we can control is what we can control. Last week, we donated a bunch of stuff through Freedom in Christ Ministry to a local public school. We came and we gave them core needs, socks, toothbrushes, underwear, just everything they could possibly need, soap, deodorant. And we said, listen, we understand we're not solving world hunger by doing this. What about the kids over at that school? What about that? Listen, we just trying to do our part. We would love to get to a point where we can supply 10 times what we have today. But today we're focusing on, let's get this done. Let's build some momentum, and then we can keep going.
Keep going from there. No, definitely. There's times where, hey, I'm like, look, I'm done. I'm just spent. But at the same time, you can't stay there.
Yeah.
You know, you can't stay in that state. You gotta, at some point, like, all right, get up, let's get going, let's get moving. You will get times where you will get to that bottom and you like just shut it down. It might be a day and you're like, and you wake up the next morning, I gotta get in this. This ain't the end. You know what I'm saying?
But it's about having emotional intelligence. And I was reading something or something came to my wavelength where it was saying how EQ tends to be much more important than IQ. And a lot of us, we grew up in an environment where it's really not conducive to creating high achieving individuals in fast moving environments. You're taught, sit down in your seat. Don't speak out of turn. Put your hand down. It's not the time for questions. You know what I'm saying? It's so much structure involved that a lot of these kids, they can become stifled and they're just being trained to be employees. Going back to the EQ, what you were saying where you have these moments where it feels like, oh man, it's a lot going on. You have to understand when this is really a moment where I need to sit down and acknowledge what I'm feeling and just grieve. Let's say a loved one passes. That's a moment you have every right to take a moment and say, you know what? I have to acknowledge this. I have to let this, pass through. If something else happens where, oh, my favorite team lost. Oh, the rest of the day is ruined. It's like, listen, man, is this really a moment where you want to go emotionally off the hook? Is it really? And that's the part where I say the EQ is more important than IQ because the way you navigate those emotional up and downs throughout your life and just your day, that determines a lot about how successful you're going to be.
And wrapping this thing up, I just want to, rapid fire here. In a relationship, what's the situation where you just had to say, well, I'm gonna just have to deal with it?
Ooh, that's a hot one. But no, it is. I'm gonna try to weave it in here a little bit. So, Mike and I both are married. So, being married, I made a decision. I love my wife, and I'm like, every year that love grows, right? So, my thing is like, and hopefully she don't kill me on this, but she got a little habit that she do, and she been doing it since we've been married. I would try to, hey, can you not do that? Can you do this, whatever. Okay, it don't happen. And it used to get under me, right? I'm like, man, this is just like, why can't she just do this one thing?
Yeah.
Well, it got to the point where it meant more to me than it did to her. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Okay, so my getting used to it was like, I'm just gonna take care of this because this is just not in her lens. She's just not wired where, and then I do stuff. Like I leave mail on the stairs. It drives her crazy.
We all got our thing.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And so, and I try to remember taking it, but I just do it. I'm just wired. I'm like, boom, that's just, even.
Boom, keep moving.
I'd be good for a week, and then all of a sudden I'm coming back, start stacking again. So, she got to the point where she don't bring it up no more. So she's just dealing with it. So there's things, I would say, in marriage that you just deal with because, in the bigger scope, it's nothing. Because, if you to have things grow and continue to go, dealing with this little thing over here, just deal with it.
The outcome is greater than the minutia.
Exactly. And if there's a big problem, then hey, let's get together and we deal with it. Just get, and just certain that you just get used to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And how you communicate as well. But go ahead, Mike.
So men and women have different conversation styles, right? One thing that I'm still getting used to, I haven't mastered it, but I feel like I'm getting better at it, is like when we're having a conversation, my wife and I have to do a better job of just listening to listen versus trying to solve her problems. Because a lot of times, with women, they're not really looking for a solution. They want somebody, and that's the part where I'm just used to jumping in, solving problems. This is where my training almost works against me in that, because I'm used to taking action, solving problems, taking action, solving problems. Whereas, you know, she might say, no, I need a moment, listen to my story, you know, and she's telling me the story and I'm looking for where can I jump in, and it bites me every time. It ends up, and so that's something where I had to just understand that she's not gonna change her conversation style because she's wired that way. A lot of women are, you know, and that's the biggest one I would say that just jumped out to me.
When we realize, I mean, everybody, you hear people say it all the time, like, oh, we're not perfect, I'm not perfect, they're not perfect, we're not, whatever. But in this lane, there's a repentance. I have to get used to admitting that this is wrong. The thing that I've done is wrong. This nature, there's a temptation, there's a habit that just keeps on getting me. And it's getting used to accepting that, you know what, as long as I continue to move forward, as long as I can accept me for who I am and then try my best to get rid of the things that don't draw me closer to God, then I can move forward. Mike, I had a question for you as well. Do you have a moment where you just had to say, well, I'm gonna have to get used to this in business?
I started with the single family home space and we built that business up to, you know, we have a decent sized portfolio. Now I'm shifting my focus to commercial. Commercial is very different. You're dealing with different numbers, different sizes, different landscapes, different clienteles. It's really like speaking a different language. So I have to get used to getting back in that learning seat, you know, where in the other space, the single family homes, I'm more of a veteran. You know, people come to me all the time asking for advice. I can advise. I've seen a lot of situations. Even though I'm a veteran in this aspect of real estate, I had to get used to being a rookie in this new lane.
Gotcha.
And that's the hat that I put on. Like, you know, every day, I want to learn. I want to learn what you guys are seeing, you know, give me the tips. I'm doing research for myself because I want to approach it with that tenacity. It's actually exciting though. It's actually exciting because it's something new. And I could look at it as, man, this is so challenging. I don't know anything about this. You know what? I'm going to quit looking at that and go back to what I'm comfortable with, or stay in this moment and just do what it takes. It takes what it takes. Like, I got to figure it out. Got to get used to it.
Well, fellas, thank you for all the input on that. I know there was tons in this episode for sure. But if you are looking for a community group, a group of fellas who are, you know, having conversations like these, like really breaking down barriers and understanding the things that you should be getting used to. Because, I mean, we didn't talk, maybe that's another episode, but there are a few things that it's like, actually, you need to just go in a different direction. Yes. That's not for you. But we have a group of people who are all going through the process, people who are building better processes to handle bigger issues and achieve bigger things in life. And it's called Men 2.0. Yes. And I think you should be a part of it. So all of the information is below. Go ahead and click that link if you want to join the group. And if you like this episode, you're gonna love the one on your screen right there. And with that, we'll see you there. Peace.
Peace.